Oh, it's been a few months. Welcome everyone to our Laravel Cape Town meetup for July. It was supposed to be June, but I didn't get to it. We're doing this a little bit differently this time. I've been wanting to kind of bring people on and talk on what they're building personally with Laravel and what they've learned doing that. What you might not learn on the job. A new piece of technology, getting ahead of the hype curve, building stuff for your hobbies, all sorts of things like that. So we have 3 lightning talks for tonight. First up, we have John, then we'll have Jonathan, and last we'll have Jason, the J&J team. I was going to make a CTO, a solutions architect, and a tech lead walk into a Cinovate, but I'm not that good at improv. If you would like to get involved, there's a website, laravelcapetown.co. You can sign up to be a speaker there, or find a few different places to find more places to discuss with others. We have now 3 ZTechs technically around the space, and sites like Laravel to find other developers. And I think there was a pairing site, I forget the name of it, which you could find people to pair with, ideally in the same area. And other than that, thanks to the Cinovate peeps for hosting us. Yeah. So, first up, Zone. Without further ado, we'll have our first contestant. Just a pregnant pause.
Priorities.
For a good
Jonathan, how loud do I need to speak for this microphone? Is this good? Alrighty.
We'll just hand to go.
Sweet. Yeah. Let me plug in over here. Alrighty. So, I've had a couple side projects over the years, and we're going to chat a little bit kind of about them, but not really too much about them. Okay, but before we get into the thing about side projects and building cool stuff, a little bit about me. It's actually the exact same text as the last talk I did. I just moved it around slightly and put a new photo. Yeah. I thought a bit weird having a long hair photo and not being long hair currently. It's me. If you're around PHP in Cape Town or South Africa, you probably met me or heard of me at some point. Cool. So, side projects. How often do we actually, and not just specific side projects, like just in general, how often do we build things that we want to build? Or how often are we just building things because that's our job? We've got to do it. We've got to solve the problem, and we're going to get paid. And I mean, getting paid is a great reason to do stuff, but we're also engineers who like building things and making stuff. And not building things because you want to is sometimes quite sad. So something I want to really encourage you, everyone here, to do is to build more stuff. Build stuff you're keen about. Build things you're excited about, and because you want to do it. The most learning I've ever had on projects has always been because I've wanted to learn something, or I've had, you know what, how about if I did that but in a different way, and I tried. And was it the best idea for the project? No. Was it a good idea for a business commercial decision? Not at all. But it was amazing learning opportunity-wise. So there's a huge amount you can learn just because you want to learn, and building things because you want to solve a problem is a great reason to solve it. I can't see my speaker notes here. Okay. Cool. All right. So, finding the time for side projects. It's always a conversation that comes up when talking about side projects, because 9 to 5, you're busy. You're tired after 9 to 5. You get home. Maybe you've got kids. You've got a partner. Things are happening. You don't have much time after work, and putting in that kind of big thinking brain can be quite challenging. And it doesn't really get easier. If you don't care about something, you won't put in the time for it. That's just as simple as it is. If you'll always find things that are more cool or more exciting, and at some point, I think the solution to finding time for your side projects is actually just care more about your side project, right? If your side project doesn't grip you, doesn't motivate you, and it's feeling like a chore, that's not a fun side project. I don't think I want to work on a side project like that. I want to work on something that is exciting, that gives value, that does cool stuff. and that doesn't waste much of my time, right? You might be like, oh, but if I don't like put in all this time up front and like do the whole thing now, then it won't ever get off the ground. It might be 5 years since before I actually get it off the ground and it start going. I'm like, that's okay. Like, one of my biggest side projects at the moment, I actually elected the commit log this morning and started work on it 6 years ago. It's not complete. It's nowhere near complete. It's functional and it's providing good value, but it's nowhere near complete. If I spent 3 months right now, I could build it way better than I ever have so far. But I've built it and it's working and it's iterative, right? And that's a huge thing about side projects. Just get involved, start doing it, work on it, iterate on it. New thing comes out, toss it on, have fun, right? Nightwatch comes out, I threw in my side project to have a look and see how it would do, right? All that kind of stuff. Okay. I think the biggest thing that I would recommend with side projects is avoiding time overheads. If a side project becomes a chore, it's not fun. If your side project isn't very automatable or requires a lot of operational time to get going, it can be a lot more difficult to get it going, right? Then you need a lot more active energy at certain times for it to actually work. But if you've automated most of those problems away, actually those time overheads are just whenever you decide to build things, right? If you want to add new features, that's cool. If you're not adding new features, it should just continue to run over. So something that I really like doing is building stuff that you don't need to babysit, right? I've left side projects for a year, forgotten about them, and then remembered them, being like, hey, I think I've got a thing that solves that problem. Try the, yeah, it's still, the domain's still there, it's still hosted, yeah, it's still actually working, right? And all that because you're avoiding things that ever have issues. So a lot more defensive programming around certain things, but if it heals itself a lot better, it means that you don't have to worry about it. And if stuff has issues, you know that it will be fine and not everything won't cascade failure-wise. Rule things as if you'll disappear for 2 weeks because you will always want to not be part of things for a certain amount of time. Yeah, I think that one's a pretty no-brainer. Cool. Okay, so here's a little side project I'm going to talk about. It's called Mox Monolith. It's quite a mouthful. It's a South African Magic the Gathering product scraper. Cool. South Africa's got a lot of Magic the Gathering cards, a lot of Magic the Gathering retailers, stuff like that. But there's no good finding on any of them, and a lot of their websites really suck. So if you want to find a specific card, you've got to go every day to every one of 30 different retailers and look at their site to see if they added stock. And those page loads are like 20 seconds every page. So that's not fun, right? So Mandy got annoyed at that, and so we decided to build Mox Monolith. It literally just does that for you behind the scenes, so you don't have to, right? So it's doing a lot of jobs, a lot of stuff behind the scenes, so that it can always give the users clean real-time data. Let me just show you. Cool. How many people have actually played Mox? Have played Magic? Okay, so we've got a couple of Magic players here. Cool. For those that don't know anything about Magic, it's a card game. There are a lot of cards. Like 60,000 unique named cards. Which get 3 months. New cards every 3 months. We're almost at 1,000 different sets. Each set can have hundreds to thousands of cards. So there are like a lot of cards, right? Which means that if you're wanting to buy a single one that was last printed in 1994, it can be quite difficult in South Africa. We're not normally known for being the largest market. So here's the site. Blah, blah. It's got things. You can search for cards. And you maybe search for a Soul Ring or whatever. So it pulls cards from an API. You see them and you can search for them. And you can see what vendors are selling them at what prices. and you can click on one and see, oh, that's a pretty one. Okay. And you can see the exact one that you're wanting and then find it. Pretty much all it does is it just makes your life easier as to going to find things, right? So that's the site. It's not very complicated. There's a lot of background stuff, a lot of caching things to try and get fresh data. But actually, it was, hey, I've last done scraping things in Python. I've always done scraping in Python. That's okay, but then you've got to use Python. So it's like, you know what, let's just try using Laravel for this, right? And so that's why I used Laravel for it. Was it the right idea? Maybe. Worked pretty well. It's been pretty fun to work on. It's been a lot more fun to work on than a Django app. So I'm happy with it. But the point here is that you don't have to do things a specific way because it's the best way. You can do it in a way because you want to learn it that way. You can do it that way because you want to see how this works. Maybe like you want to do a Node app with 40 microservices and see how things all work in a big Kubernetes cluster. You can totally do that. You can also just run it on a tiny little server for 4 years and have almost no costs attached to it, right? Like there are always options for you, and you should be solving the problems. Just going to reach you. Oh, that's not the snapshot button. Cool. So I wrote some quick stats about the side project, just for funsies. Costs about $120 a month for hosting. That's just a little T3 small on Amazon. And it's been running on a T3 small on Amazon for 4 years now. Just a little reserved instance, just doing its thing, chilling at 10% CPU. It's got a lot of products. MySQL on the same server, Redis on the same server, not auto-scaled, no, literally nothing fancy. I think I might be using Opcache, I'm not sure. But like, nothing complicated. And yet, it's very busy, it's very active, and it's providing a lot of cool value. And it's just a fun side project for me, really, at this point. And like, the cool thing is that like you can just build stuff, right? You can just build this. This didn't exist beforehand. There wasn't any other option. And just using the existing sites was painful. So it was just cool. Well, I know how to solve that problem for me. I might as well solve other people too, because it's the same effort, right? Caching it all for me or caching it all for everyone is pretty much the exact same effort cost. So might as well do that. And it kind of just runs. Retailers get to log into a little filament panel and edit their little info so they can see all, like they put their contact info and all their things there. And all that stuff works. And for the most part, the side project just does its thing. Which is pretty cool. Actually, there was one thing that I removed on that first slide about my info about me. On the previous talk, there was a line there about I've got a side project that was bigger than Roger Sain's app. Anyone even remember that? No. Okay. Digress. But there was a joke about, and look at this app. This was the side project that was bigger than his commercial app he was doing. And most importantly, people's lives have been made better by me building some cool stuff. Because people can use it to find stuff that they otherwise would have had to waste a lot of time finding. So that's pretty much it. It's a very short talk from me this time. Not what we're used to. But the inspiration is just take that thing. Take that idea you've got. That thing that's been annoying you. That you're like, oh, that thing should be done better. And just do it. Just do it. Just put it on a server somewhere. Put it on a Raspberry Pi. Have fun. Put it in your Raspberry Pi in your garage or wherever you want to do it. Have fun building stuff and build more things. If you're wanting a new job, I'm wanting to replace myself. So let me know at my main company.
Any questions?
Yeah.
So, obviously, building is one thing, promoting is another thing.
Yeah.
If you do, what were you still doing to make it so they work?
Yeah, so that's where I've tried to be even more careful on the time expenditure side. Because I've tried, so there's a little WhatsApp community that we've got, which is part of like one of the bigger WhatsApp South Africa communities for Magic. And for the most part, it's a support group that has a little bit of chat every now and again. The big thing was getting a couple of the core big sites on. And then from there, I get requests once a week or so for new people to add their stuff and add their things. And for a lot of them, I've made nice, clean integrations. Like I've made a nice WooCommerce. I made a WooCommerce integration. And I've made like a Shopify integration. And I made a couple X things. And then if you've got that, I can just plug you right in. And it's super easy. Just give me your keys and I'll pop it in. So for the most part, people have been lining up to add their stores. It's gotten large enough that retailers notice very quickly when there's connections that's disconnected, because suddenly their sales drops quite a lot. Because actually most people seem to be just finding their cards straight from here as opposed to going to the sites.
Many guys.
There is a monetization plan. I actually meant to have a whole thing there on my slides. I had a whole plan for talking about like potentially selling you on the idea of you can totally make products work, right? So like I think there's actually going to become a decent financial option. And we've got a little page here planned with wish lists and notifications and all that sort of stuff. Very much as a feature add-on to like base stays free and then always selling on new features. So that's all planned, and I'm hoping that it's more than covers its server costs and its dev time, which would be awesome, because then that's just a really cool side project. And at that point, then that'll have pretty much no time requirement from you. Yeah. So like it updates every 30 seconds. It picks a card that it hasn't looked at in a while, goes and searches all the retailers for that card. And there's got stuff like every week or every day, it'll check against a couple of APIs to see if there are new cards to actually update its own list of cards and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We do sub project as well to fill out test coverage.
I had full-on test coverage for this project when it was a decoupled front-end backend. At one point, the backend, we stopped using inertia a while ago. And at that point, I dropped the tests. But the tests were completely API. So basically, we had a full decoupled API, and the API was entirely tested. I haven't bothered. Actually, there's no tests at all. Not a single test currently.
It's live, it's working.
I've got a WhatsApp community of testers. But side projects, you toss Sentry on it, it's free. You toss Nightwatch on it, it's free. It'll last half an hour, and you get some insights every half an hour every month. And there are a lot of free tools and a lot of really cool tools. Laravel Pulse is awesome, right? Want to pop Laravel Pulse in your side project, and it just kind of works. I need to log in. No.
Sentry.
Pulse is on your server and free. Nightwatch is like a big Sentry, so like a proper APM, like New Relic kind of thing, but custom for Laravel, and has a free tier, but you'll run out very quickly. Pulse will give you up to 7 days, and you can look at, oh cool, there's the last 6 hours. You can see apparently I was doing some things. Some other people have been doing things. You can look at all the queues. You can see the caches, slow queries and slow requests, slow outbound ones. These are all WordPress sites. All WordPress sites. Hurts my soul. If anyone wants some entertaining read, the WordPress channel on ZA Tech has me doing a quick little dive into seeing if I can get a nicer version of my WooCommerce API integration for this project. And it was just like, no, like their API it's just bad. It's just bad. Trying to just do a bulk search of all someone's products, just like it's just not an option. I've got to build a plugin to build my own SQL. Yeah, Pulse is really cool because you can just look at like the last 7 days info and just see what your CPU, just like small health metrics kind of thing. But it's also pretty much, it's entirely free, entirely open source, and like has almost zero server load at all. It's like not even 0.5%. Yeah, which is very cool. Great. I'm way over time.
Thanks again. Thanks, John. Good talk on Mox. I'm definitely going to steal that idea for Yu-Gi-Oh. Find my Yu-Gi-Oh people. Yeah. Next up, we have Jonathan speaking about hosting on a Raspberry Pi, just like John was saying. Which is side project Raspberry Pi. Doesn't matter. It'll live forever.
Way stronger than my server.
Recording as a workout of struggle.
Yes. My steps and my heartbeat. I need to be in zone 5. So at least 9 minutes of this 10-minute session. But I'm really, really honored to be here and actually give a talk to our local community. It's been something I've been wanting to do ever since I joined as a hopeful junior to get into the ecosystem and find my first tech job. So it's really awesome to be here. And so I'm going to talk about Laravel, which is not to be confused with an official package or an official service. It is just me tinkering in my home office on a little project I want to tell you about. And effectively, I kind of wanted to figure out self-hosting. It's been around for quite some time in my mind space. And I guess we can start by talking about the why. So I unfortunately forgot the one thing I wanted to talk about tonight, which is the Raspberry Pi. So image, best second substitute. But yeah, so effectively, I think I watched a video about 4 years ago from, I'm sure was a crowd favorite, is Fireship. And he basically dove into a recent move by Amazon Web Services against a certain app that had grown to be quite popular, especially on Android. And they effectively kind of yanked the mat from this service, and they effectively folded because they didn't have the cloud infrastructure to distribute the app anymore. And so he did a whole talk on, is the cloud necessarily the best space? And that kind of planted that seed with me, like, okay, so you can actually self-host. And I think one of the biggest things that that drives self-hosting these days is we've all got fairly beefy internet lines at home. I think if you're rocking anything faster than a 50 meg line, you effectively can serve quite a few requests over that. And so that kind of triggered my interest in this possibility of self-hosting. And over the years, various people in this room even have actually kind of tinkered with this, put down a little server at home. And I've always taken notes, and everybody promises to write a blog article about how they did it. And we never seem to get that far. But so into end of last year, I had this idea. I want to now create my first app, and I've got a prospect that needs a problem solved, and things are looking good. And I'm just thinking, okay, let's do this the normal way, the way that I've kind of been coached and taught as I'm working for various companies. So you've got Forge. So of course I hit up an AWS account. I link my Forge account. I click the magic buttons and promised a server, and nothing. So I go, okay, fine. The ecosystem doesn't work for me. Let me go outside the ecosystem. Deploy. Hook it up, link it up, click the magic buttons. Nothing. So on reflection, I do think it was probably a picnic problem in chair, not in computer, because if two main service providers can't get my server up, then the odds are it's probably me. But it did strike me that I didn't know enough, that these tools were really automating a lot of vital things to your product. And if you're going to be a product owner and you're going to officially drive something, I just figured I wanted to know a bit more. Because if something goes wrong, I can't go like, oh yeah, it's Forge. or it's Proy. So I kind of got into it for that reason. I really wanted just to have the control, have this thing that I've also been wanting to do for quite some time. I've collected a lot of resources, and I kind of felt ready to take this on. And effectively, that was my why behind it, right? So next up was just how I did this, and it was actually ended up being fairly simple. I remember it took me about a day and a half, about, let's say, Jira story points. It took me about 5 points to deliver. And but in normal people speed, it took me about a day and a half to figure out. And if you had to ask me to do this again, I could probably get it up in under an hour, just because I know where to go and what tools to use. And so what was super helpful was RouxtAccess. So maybe one day I'll actually put this down into a blog, but consider this my spoken recorded blog. But I utilized RouxtAccess. There's a great course on it that actually shows you how to build a server by hand from AWS. And so you log into AWS, you spin up the EC2, you SSH in, and everything from there is exactly the same as it would be at your home, right? So apt update, apt install, throw the keyboard against the wall, you know, all those things, they stay consistent. Doesn't matter what environments you're deploying on, right? And so there's a great course there about building that. And so you can take the knowledge, everything that he does on the server, all the user isolations and all of that stuff is pretty much the same on your home server. And I actually have a few contacts with some pretty cool home hosted services, of which I won't disclose the full details of, but it's all about moralities board, but not necessarily about legalities board. So in any case, but and so these people are hosting quite a few nice services, and I've kind of been chatting to them. So it's been stuff like, why do you want to use Google Photos when you can use your own photo servers on Docker and then it's your own data? So they've been doing things like this, and I've been really inspired, and I could go and talk to them because they're into this. And so I was just advised to look at Dino DNS, which is a phenomenal service that resolves your IP for changes. So at homes, we don't officially have static IPs, but if you've got fiber, your service providers, your ISPs don't necessarily change it up too much. So mine stayed consistent since I started focusing on it in December and had it whitelisted. So I haven't had to bother DevOps to whitelist a new IP recently. So it stays quite consistent. I did do the homework about how much it costs. It costs about 60 Rand a month on top of your bill to get a static IP where the ISP, Web Africa in this case, agrees this is what your IP is going to be. So all of that sorted. So now it's as good, that IP is as good as having your EC2 IP, and you can connect, no issues. All right, and then lastly, spare parts, because that's always a boon. And I think what actually ends up happening is we're all building up spare parts. I don't think there's a person in this room that doesn't have an old laptop or an old desktop machine, heaven forbid, that's still around, right? That's sitting either in your garage or in your office, and you can spin it up. So you've got effectively an EC2. And so spare parts. All right, and then I guess finally, I just wanted to chat about my verdict. Kind of on the fence about this one, because I've chatted to a lot of people in the community and a lot of great arguments. To John's point, that server costs you next to nothing. So it's not necessarily that the point would be like, hey, I'm going to do this for cost saving. However, when I did come out with the benchmarking into the public channels before I got corrected gently, as we do get corrected on public channels, was the typical hardware that you'd need to have on an EC2, not a reserved instance, just a on-demand. You would be spending about 30 to 50 grand a year to have that Raspberry Pis on EC2 on demand. So I came in from that angle, and then I think that quite a few people actually, and this is what's good about building in public, is you do sometimes get great input. So I was made aware of certain services and service providers that aren't one of our AWS, GCP, Azure, that actually offer some pretty good packages. And so my verdict here is just that I think it's a great tool to have. It is probably not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, but it does get me quite excited in terms of controlling the hardware that your software lives on to a certain extent. And I'm quite excited by things like, you've got this knowledge, now you can put any hardware down there. So maybe a very hungry, GPU hungry LLM, and you need the GPU box, and we all know those aren't a dime a dozen, but once of cost, you can put it down. You can have an LLM on that you maybe wrap around your app. So it's a cool tool to have. It's about a day and a half's investment to get to having the site online. And yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
What was one thing which you thought was going to take 15 minutes but it took you half a day?
Oh wow, DNS. Definitely DNS. It was really interesting figuring out all the A records, because you've got the person that you buy your website from, you've got your own router that needs to now expose ports, and the router goes like, "Are you sure you want to do this? You're actually up to hackers." I'm like, yeah. What don't they already know? But yeah, the DNS was quite challenging. And what was interesting is I actually also, Cloudflare also featured and failed because I wasn't willing to pay for Cloudflare. And so the Cloudflare free tier is like, oh, you haven't had a connection in 20 minutes. And so again, I was like, okay, I probably need to figure out how to self-host. But yeah, DNS was pretty hectic. Yeah. But it was cool, and it still is. And again, I didn't. This project, I think, actually went sideways, so it's not going to become commercially viable, and it's just time. And I still got learnings out of it, so there's no monetary loss. So yeah, it's been good. And quick one. On top of that, somebody was like, "But hey, why don't you just throw Docker at it?" I'm like, "Of course." And so suddenly I spun up WordPress. And a few other services just with containerization, port forwarding, and oh, now I've got subdomain, and there I go. So it's really, once you've got that thing exposed and you can get a connection into it, routing becomes really interesting. And I think another thing was also just, again, taking a step back and really appreciating what Forge and Ploy and Envoyer actually do for us, but also just figuring out how to do a lot of that with GitHub Actions, cron jobs. It's because that's all it is. They wrap that around us and they abstract that layer. But again, it's nice knowing it, so that if I'm ever left to the mercy of enterprise support, that I can get my hands dirty and solve stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Great. Cool. Hello, everybody. My name's Jason. At the day job, I am tech lead at OfferZen. So I don't get to work at Laravel, unfortunately, which makes me very sad. So I do try and dabble when I can on side projects. And yeah, outside of work, I am travel runner and a board game enjoyer. So yeah, this is one of those dabbled little Laravel projects, which is very much in progress. So I'm kind of showing you behind the scenes of like a side project that's, I don't know, maybe 50% complete. And I can show you some of the pain points I've had and what it does. But to give you a little bit of context and issue about what I was trying to achieve here, I had kind of two goals of building this. I called it Remy because it's like short for remember, and it's a little elephant symbol, which I had to learn how to do SVG drawing to do because AI cannot draw SVGs to save its life. So I had no choice but to figure out how to do that. But essentially, the one thing I wanted to try and learn how to do is build proper agents in Laravel. So it's easy enough to get like an LLM wrapper and then to just go and, you know, take a prompt, get some text back and show it. Like that's simple. Like anybody can do that. But when you want to make it an agent where it's able to call its own tools, it's able to decide what tools it calls, communicate with other agents, it gets a little bit trickier. And I was trying to see, like, in the Laravel world, what could I do to make that happen? Spoiler alert, didn't go particularly well in Laravel. I had to step out of it. But now, like, I can see the gap, and hopefully the Laravel team will actually be able to pick up the pieces, because if they could, it would be incredible for the ecosystem. And we'll see why just now. So the other thing that I was trying to achieve here, and I'll get to what the app actually does by explaining this, is I have a lot of tasks in my life that are recurring, but they're pretty flexible. They don't happen on a specific day. They happen within a range of days. And it doesn't really matter if I miss the due date. I can do it a little bit later. And tasks like that, such as, for example, calling your mom, calling your gran, scheduling a dentist, scheduling a GP, where you want to have, for example, I might want to call my mom every 2 weeks, roughly. I want to schedule the GP once a year, roughly, but not on a specific day necessarily. It just doesn't work super well in traditional to-do apps because they want you to say on this date and then do it again on the same date in the year. It doesn't always work like that in the real world. So I wanted to get a task kind of app where I could populate a ton of tasks, like everything I can think of that's going to recur, and it'll tell me each week, these ones might be a good suggestion. and it'll kind of learn from my patterns and behaviors around what it should suggest on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. So that's essentially what this is. Okay, I should probably look down here. It's a bit hard to look up there to see the thing. So you will add your tasks, learn your patterns, get your suggestions, and then you can complete, skip, or defer it, which I'll show you just now. Cool. Okay, so I'll log in. And here are my suggestions that it wants me to do this week. For some reason, it's very sure that like dental stuff is urgent, and I can't, no matter how much I tell it, like it's not urgent, it's okay, that it was completed 363 days ago and it's due in 2 more days, that it's not urgent, it's okay. But I'll get it to do that at some point. But yeah, that's what it's thought so far. This is all of the tasks I have, and these are actual things I care about in life and want to do at a recurring basis. Meryl Sweep is my robot vacuum cleaner at home, so that is every week that must be on the list, also I'm going to be upset. So that's all the tasks, and then with these ones I can complete and give it a note, and everything that I do here is going to kind of tell the agent a little bit more about what it should do next time. So if I say, well, on this one maybe I'll skip it, I'll be like, I'll do this next week. So now it should look at that and tell me on the following week, and I'll do a bit of time shenanigans to make it show up. It should recommend that again. But let's say I complete a couple other ones, because I just want to show you just now how that tool works. So I'm just going to skip some and complete some just so that the list is done. Cool. So there you go. Great work. I've accomplished my tasks. Some I've skipped, some I've completed. And let's just look briefly at what the code is so you can understand what I've had to do to make this happen. So we've got 2 apps. The first one here is a standard Laravel app. So it's just all the typical stuff. It's running inertia on the front end. It's running React and TypeScript. Nothing to write home with out there. That's all normal stuff. Well, the AI, what's happening is every week it's going to run a task for each user to generate recommendations at 6 a.m. GMT on Monday. It can be whatever, but that's what it is for now. And that actually hits a separate API. So at this point is where I've spent a lot of the time. First, I tried Prism PHP. I tried to build a little wrapper around that and see if I could get it to work. Where that fell apart was tools. If I didn't tell it explicitly what to do, when to do it, it wasn't going to do it. It wasn't going to like deterministically figure out how to do it. Even though it says it's got tools, it's more just like an API it must always call kind of thing. In my case, I wanted the agent to be able to decide what it needed to do based on the context what it had. Prism PHP, at the time I tried it, didn't do that very well. There was another Laravel thing that I've tried, which was brand new. It was too new because this was a couple months ago. I think even maybe it'll be better now, but at the time it just didn't have what I needed. I don't even think it had tools fully finished at that point. So at that point I figured, okay, let me try do it. We'll do it work and do LangChain and Langsmith. If you ever worked with that stuff, it's a bit of a nightmare because it's incredibly powerful, but so complicated. You have to think in this like graph way and map all these things together. And I wasn't having fun. To John's point, like if it's not fun to do the side project, like stop doing it. So then I decided to try something that I only just heard about, but was really great. And that was Cloudflare Workers and the Agent SDK, which was incredible. Absolutely love this. And I really, really hope that they're able to bring a DX to this degree into the Laravel world. So how it works essentially is this is a Hono API, which is kind of like Express, just a lot more lightweight and simple. And what it does is every call to an agent, it'll route it to the special agent class. So here I've got my task suggestion agent, for example. This is a thing called a durable object. So it's essentially like this like super long running entity that's persistent, that's always at this specific URL. So agent was at task suggestion. So if I hit that, I'm always hitting the same state of this thing. If I pass a user ID and a bunch of data, it actually keeps that in memory. So it keeps learning about the user, like what did they complete? What did they skip? When did they do it? What's their last 6 months of history? And if someone else had to hit one with their user ID, there's a persistent agent for them too. So you can start getting really, really powerful stuff here. Like for example, I could tell it every 3 days, ping the user back with the stuff they still didn't do in the week. Yes, I could do that with a Laravel job, but it's really incredible that I can just get this long-running persistent API to do that for me as an agent. So all this guy really does is it receives a bunch of tasks and information from the Laravel app, and it runs some prompts. So the prompts are pretty simple. They're basically just getting this task and this week content and everything that was skipped, decide what they should do next, and it has the chance to call this task history. So this is a tool that it has access to, which is actually an API called back to Laravel. And this is something I kind of dislike about what I had to do here. Two-way coupling thing going on. The Laravel app calls this, but then this has to call the Laravel app to get its stuff on the database so I can use it as context. I would love it all to be in one place, one app, one database. But yeah, side note, it doesn't have to call this because in its own database, it really has the task the time. So it only calls it if it's like, okay, it's been 2 weeks. I want to know what else the user's done. Otherwise, it just uses its own thing. So it's quite cool to like watch it in the graph thing of like, sometimes it uses it, sometimes it doesn't, which is really the kind of UX I wanted to get right. Cool. Okay, so that's what that does. Now I'm going to quickly jump forward in time a little bit because I want to show you next week and then like actually run it so we can see what it's going to do. So we'll say that it is actually next week. By the way, if you've ever done this before, it breaks a lot of stuff in your laptops. Don't recommend doing it. Just cool. Okay, it's been a week, obviously, so I'm logged out now. All right, so I've got no recommendations, which shouldn't happen because the scheduler would have run, but that's fine. So I'll come here and install a dev server on the Cloudflare thing. Cool. What's really cool about the Cloudflare Workers dev thing, by the way, if you want to try it, is it's pretty much the same command locally and on prod. And local just runs like a version of Cloudflare Workers. So it's pretty much just like mimicking it. So when I want to go to prod, I just say rang the prod. And then it just takes exactly what I've done and just uses on Cloudflare Workers. Because local and prod are always mirrors of each other, I don't have to worry about, oh, my local does this, my prod does that. It's the same thing. So it's incredibly easy and quick to be able to go between the two. Anyway, it's running. And then I've got this command, which Warp has helpfully filled in for me, which does the same thing as the job. Give it the user, get the tasks, send it to it. So I send that through. It's going to say that there are 16 tasks they could find. And it's going to send through like what I've completed and whatnot. And on the right-hand side here, we can see that it started the recommendations. I found 2 previously skipped tasks, what I did. It did decide to call the fetch history tool. And it found 7 records in my history. And in such some amount of time, 1,000 seconds, 8,000 milliseconds, it's got me my new tasks. So now it's very sure I should do this dental thing. So even though it knows that I skipped it, but it says I must do it this week. Sometimes it gets upset with me. Like it told me to file my taxes and I said, I prefer just to commit fraud. And it said, that's not a valid excuse. You're doing it this week. It's not happy with that. So robot vacuum's there. And there's a couple other things which I had done the previous week that now I'm supposed to do every 2 weeks. So this for me is actually super useful. Like the whole thing of side projects must be interesting. I do forget to do these things. I don't want to put them out to do apps because they're too loose. So this for me is a perfect way of every week, here's my things, great, do the things. I can then leave the app. I don't have to worry about it. I think it was Nick who said this tiny bit mighty idea of like an app that does something, it just does that well. I like that concept too. So I didn't want it to too many features. I just wanted to do one thing well, and that's all it needs to do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a couple other things, like there's a history view, there's some settings and stuff, but I mean, it's really basic. Yeah, I think the main thing from like a takeaway perspective was, I think that we can have what this thing does in a kind of Laravel context. I think the main really useful part from a task suggestion thing is this, what's this called? Generate text. This part here, where essentially you tell it what tools it has available, you tell it what's the maximum amount of steps, and you pass this in the prompt. This is a very easy syntax to set up, but the difference is that it actually will choose between those tools that you've listed there. I found that the Prism PHP and the Lara Agents one, it's deterministic. It's like it will always do every single one of those. All I want to do is I want to be able to say, here's a prompt, here's the tools that you can use in the context to use it, and in this just go figure out what to use. So I'm pretty sure that Taylor Well and the rest of the crowd are going to do something like this, because we shouldn't have to go and rely on JavaScript or Python to do it. We need this in PHP. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you. Is there a hand in the back?
Yes. Out of curiosity, did you touch on any MCP principles here?
Yeah, so the top pages actually has both. So you can set up an MCP client and an MCP server. So you can make your agent, one of the methods you call it is, I think it's called setup MCP client, where you basically tell it is a client to do things, And the reverse is also true. You can make it a server, so the other agents call it. Because their whole thing is they want to like allow you to build a network of agents that know how to call each other's protocols. So really incredible. The only downside I would say to Cloud for Agents Care is it's so new that the documentation is basically non-existent. Like it's like one page. So you have to just go and figure things out yourself, which is kind of part of the fun, but really be blown away by like what it can do and how easy it can do it. So yeah. Nice.
You're hosting this?
Yeah, it's just on Laravel Cloud. So I've got there, and then the Wrangler pod is puts on Cafe Workers. So the AI stuff's on Cafe Workers, and the Laravel app's on Laravel Cloud, which was like 2 clicks. That's done. Super simple.
The agency stuff with Cloudflare.
So far it's just me. So I haven't even hit $1. Like because the thing is it's not high usage, right? It only runs once a week. And in that once a week, it's such low context, it's like maybe 20 cents a week max. So obviously if I actually made this thing live and I had users, which hopefully I will do soon because it's almost there, it'll go up, but it's not going to scale exponentially. It's going to be 100 calls a week, for example.
You had the user count when you run the jobs, so I assume there were more users than just the one.
Oh yeah, I save that for the
So
future.
I see you get like a log every week that says ran job for 1 user.
I want to look at those logs again.
And then how long did this take you?
I would say about 2 months of weekends. So maybe in total, I don't know, 15, 20 hours. So look, a lot of like the UI stuff or things like that, I will vibe code that stuff. Like what I was really keen to like get right is the agents side. Like I didn't touch anything on this page at all. I wrote none of that. It just wrote that for me because it's not what I was here for. Like that's cool. And if that's what I wanted to do is build fancy landing pages, great. But I like to give something else that task. I can do the things I'm interested in. Yeah.
Have you had some ideas of how you're going to wrap this in a mobile app? Are you going to do a completely native app or just use something like native PHP? Or...
I looked at native PHP. Looks interesting. It seems like it'll be pretty massive bundle sizes for what it is.
Something like this would obviously be very useful on an app instead of a login.
If it is, will be Flutter, because that's the only mobile thing I can actually use. You already get both anything with mobile is Flutter, so it'll be that.
The PHP binaries, I think they were down to what, 26 meg?
We got them down to 25 in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Which from like 400 meg a year ago is pretty huge. Wow. Yeah.
Maybe that's an option.
Yeah, I've only seen demos of it. I haven't like looked at the docs or something like that. So I'll probably then go there if it's a first port of call. If it doesn't work, go with Flutter. Because you're right, like, I mean, this app makes a lot of sense about that for sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, those are our talks. No, seriously, congrats to those who spoke, and I hope everyone here learned something new, and hopefully a bit of a motivation and inspiration to proceed with your own side projects. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.